Hack Night online. NeurotechX is an international community that facilitates the advancements of neurotechnology. Our pillars are community, education, and innovation. We have chapters worldwide, lots of meetup events, and a thriving online community of over 5,000 Slack members. Check out your local community, see if there's already a chapter. If not, please do get in touch with us. Same about your college or university. Student clubs are pretty widespread, certainly in Canada, but we'd love to expand those. And yeah, check the meetup agenda for Slack invite or sign up form. If you're not already on Slack, you can check out the online educational platform at learn.neurotechxedu.com. Sign up for the newsletter once you are a member, yeah. And if you want, check out the job board. And if you're looking for someone, get in touch with NeurotechX services. All right.
So Morgan, important question.
Yes.
How do you think neurotechnology can be used to ensure a peaceful handover of power on November the 3rd?
Well, that's.
I think we should all be asking ourselves this question.
That's. I'm gonna.
I mean, I don't care.
I'm gonna use a sip of water first.
Yeah.
Does it need to be ethical?
Yeah.
No.
I think if we've only got neurotechnology to ensure some sort of transfer, we're definitely in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, you're one of those naysayers.
Well,
could we use it to help?
Skeptics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Can we use it to figure out what people actually think about different vote propositions and laws?
Sure.
But I mean, understand what they're reading.
God forbid that, like, Democratic,
I don't know if that'll prevent the rise of fascism, though.
Would be based on policy.
I mean, there's some, it's. I don't think it's really a problem of, or I don't know how much like neuromarketing, if you will, would really add to the problem. Which what we really have is like, is your small sample size indicative of what the population is going to do come November 3rd, right? Yeah. I mean, this is the 538 and who's the
that guy's Nate Silver's so bad at his job.
Well, so I like is it Sam Wong that's at Princeton? He's a neuroscientist, right? But he's actually got a group. I don't know why I've compartmentalized myself this way, but I try and keep my political stuff on Facebook. Why? I'm not sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe some gets ignored. I
don't know.
I like Twitter. For me, I want it to be work. I want it to be like neuroscience and professional, information, updates on interesting things, and contacts and all that. I don't want politics on Twitter. I definitely don't want like random people's daily lunch activities or whatever. But you can't prevent them from seeping in.
Mainly because it's not good for you, right? I mean, it's like the daily barrage is really, really bad for your mental health. And
we could show that psychologically, probably.
Right.
That's the contribution.
Yeah.
Right. To show how in what a state the world is, thanks to social media.
Yeah, your brain on social media.
Yeah, we could do a EEG or cognitive test of how much does social media affect the psyche of people And with a big enough sample size and a good enough like blind study, it could be actually useful to like really show that it does like mentally hurt people to have a deluge of stuff that literally just adds stress to people.
Sure. I mean, again, like I don't know why I compartmentalize it this way, but like all my kind of like computational propaganda stuff, as well as like mental effects of computational propaganda, is all saved for Facebook. But great stuff in terms of like, anger increases the likelihood of your acceptance of misinformation and things like that. So some recent stuff. There's actually a great Facebook group called Computational Social Studies that I really like the admin or the person who posts a lot of papers there, in terms of this what's this documentary, The Social Dilemma?
I watched that last night.
Okay.
So I'm still reeling. Although it was kind of like a distillation of messages that I've heard already about, surveillance capitalism and all of that, but it was well produced.
And they definitely ramped up the drama factor, right? Anyway, it's one thing to talk about what these effects are, right? But we still have this certainly real problem that these companies don't share this data, right?
Yeah.
So I've been at meetings like the Alan Turing Institute where they're like, Facebook promised us a lot of things,
Yeah.
and some of it was around more around like the 2016 election and things like that, but there's not been a lot of good follow through in terms of getting real data. I mean, we can set it up in kind of lab situations, but just getting real data in terms of this is how much that person's been engaged on the platform, and this is the kind of things that they've been doing.
Another
go ahead.
movie that kind of talks about this is The Great Hack. That movie, like how they use data to target people in the middle and use they had psychologists help them like design these ads and stuff to get people to feel a certain way, and like they weren't even using
psychologists can do that. They we all know this.
Yeah.
As well as like I signed up for the original psych study, or the original study, because again he was an academic researcher, and it was taking place in the UK at the time. but so there's the Great Hack, and then what was released just yesterday, I believe, on HBO was Agents of Chaos. So,
I did see that.
Yeah, and again, it's somewhat relevant, but more in terms of psyops. Like how do you try to manipulate a population, especially to create mistrust and anger and things.
And they're doing a pretty good job of it.
I really didn't mean to, lower the mood or anything with my jocular opener there.
I mean, it's in the air, man.
Yeah, it's just I know it's kind of how life is.
I mean, on the kind of neuro front, one thing that you hear a lot, and every time I hear it, it kind of bugs me, is people talk about like Twitter gives you a dopamine hit.
Yeah,
right? It's the idea of a dopamine hit, and it's like eliminative materialism. It's this neuroscience idea that has kind of made its way into standard language.
Yeah,
but do we really know that, you know, looking at Twitter gives you a dopamine hit? Like, has anyone actually measured that? Or, you know, reading your emails? People seem pretty sure about it, the way they talk about it. How would we know? Yeah.
I mean, is something that makes people happy. Like, I think they are just pulling that from other sources, because so many things give dopamine hits. What was the originally thing being tested for giving dopamine hits when someone sees or hears something? Like, I know
Or be a monkey getting some sugar.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
like how many you're right. How many tests have actually done this for different things? Like, does gambling do it? Like, how did they do that? And I bet some psychology group has done it for social media, but Twitter, I'm not sure. But I do know, at least in video games, there's been a ton of psychological research of how video games are made and what parts of them are addictive. I mean, it's a big part of the reason why loot boxes were banned in certain countries, is because they gave this same, like, addictive nature as actual gambling, and they didn't want kids to actually do it. So a lot of games have been ever so slightly skirting that idea. It's the whole idea of gotcha games, or what are you paying for?
Well, I dropped a link in. So this is what I've been listening to on my, you know, preschool commute. Is the Pleasure Shock, which I got to say is really interesting. So,
she gave a keynote talk thing at this she was a Crania conference thing in Toronto.
Yeah.
Frank, she's a really good speaker.
So I saw Vladimir Litvik posted, you know, said something about it, and which is why I originally got it. And you know, certainly I was familiar with the Tulane experiments, and so, but it keeps going, and you know, now we're talking about, you know, Helen Mayberg's work and things like that.
Yeah.
But
so it's this guy, and he was the kind of invented, or he pioneered deep brain stimulation for. What was it for? Like, what exactly was he doing it for? But it was like he found the pleasure center.
Well,
so in the 50s or something.
Yeah, 40s, 50s. I mean, and again, like, it's super interesting because, you know, like she says, like she lays out, like, he really was a bit of a pioneer. I mean, it's actually great to couple this with the Electric Brain book that was Douglas Fields. That
I'm halfway through it. That's my Audible book at the moment.
I mean, you know, like, I kind of hate the way that he picks up on the way he talks about neurofeedback and like QEEG, like, but he's got some, you know, some really interesting history that's in there too, right? And
some old stuff. Yeah,
some old stuff, and you know, I mean, especially the Spanish scientist who, you know, who got in the ring with the bull, you know, but
I haven't heard that one yet.
so I mean,
there was something about like raising the dead and the potential influences on Mary Shelley and galvanism and stuff.
Again, like, I mean, you know, very historic, or, you know, very historically accurate work. I mean, in describing how electricity was used in the kind of, you know, more like 18th, 19th century. Certainly 19th century, where it was this, you know, somewhat not like a parlor thing, but it was, like that great story of basically doing an autopsy on a recently hung, I forget what the crime was, but Yeah. And
he also has this story in the book where, and it's like, it's a bit self-indulgent, but it makes him seem really cool, where it's just, it was about there's a technical name for it, but it's like brain damage that you get when you go into high altitude. And he was interested in it because he's a climber. But he has he's describing this event where he went climbing with his son, and he kind of lost his footing, and he's like careening down this snow-covered slope, and he nearly goes off a cliff, and he takes his axe and slams it, and he's got one chance to slam it into the ground and get his grip, and he kind of prepares himself to does so, and then he survives. Right. It's like, Jesus, man. Yeah. I knew about the plasticity stuff, but wow.
Well, and the way it was like all the climbers, like, he talked about all the climbers suffering a little bit and still being like, yeah, I'd go back up.
Yeah.
Sure, a little bit.
The serious brain damage if you got high altitude I didn't really know that.
Yeah.
I wonder how David Blaine's doing.
Oh, yeah.
He was a bit funny in the first place, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I definitely recommend the Pleasure Shock, and super relevant for what. So something that I talked with Suhela about, who's one of the organizers of NeurotechX India, after the Neuralink talk, just in terms of it's a great book to read when you remember that kind of like set the table of kind of disorders that Neuralink was going to try and address, right, with their link. And when you actually get serious about, like, so if you're going to target psychiatric disorders, like what part of the brain are you actually going to try and modify or influence?
Are they saying that? Are they saying they're going to?
Well, if you look in the, again, like, the demo of Neuralink there was like it was like a 5x3 table of disorders, from everything from like insomnia to sorry.
Oh, really? I thought they were just doing like prostheses. I didn't know they were claiming anything.
They were talking
because they're not doing deep.
Just one sec.
You need to do for yeah. I mean, anything in psychiatry, and probably.
One sec.
Yeah, same with sleep. Yeah, like you need to be deep in the brain.
Yeah, they put a pretty big list of things, and I think like the thing they were talking about to try and get some of that is to use electric and magnetic fields to affect areas deeper within the brain than where they actually have their electrodes, which I'm not sure how well it would be able to be done in that manner. But I mean, since you are creating a since the electrodes won't all be in a flat plane, they'll be able to somewhat target certain areas. But
I mean, I should like just clarify. I mean, what I said just now. I mean, obviously we use TMS and TDCS and TACS in psychiatry and neurology, but implanted electrodes for stimulation, which is what the Neuralink device is. Like those are only, so far anyway, they've only been really used for deep brain targets in psychiatry. But yeah, they could definitely put their little device over a DLPFC and probably achieve something similar to TMS. Now I think about it.
But they didn't say any details at all. They were just like, these are 20 things we think we can do something about, and pretty much that's right where it ended it in that section. It was like, yeah, we can probably do this. We aren't even going to mention how, because we probably have no idea right now.
Yeah.
And they probably don't.
Yeah, the link that I posted, or put in the slides, there was this European Congress, like I forget, neuro something, ECMP, I believe. Anyway, I can pull up the link in the slides, but this was like a whole session was psychiatrists who have chosen a target and are stimulating, like Brian Strange in Madrid, that have chosen something. I was super eager to hear what they've done and what kind of success. But really interesting to check out the pleasure shock, because this is exactly what Heath was doing, and it goes it goes horribly, I don't want to say horribly wrong, in the sense of like what he was actually doing, but he was doing what psychiatry was doing, and one of those things was that a number of what are not actually psychiatric disorders, but just culturally taboo things were considered psychiatric disorders, and he was trying to shock people out of them, not in the electroconvulsive way, but in the hedonia, like induce hedonia while cultivating the opposite behavior. So for instance, with a gay man and a prostitute,
Right.
and these were the kinds of things that he was doing in the 50s. But when you remember that, like, psychiatry didn't have a proper discussion about homosexuality until I think the 70s. I mean, like,
later
80s. I mean, it was like the book Mind Fixers, if I haven't mentioned that before, great history of psychiatry that covers that, and the competing forces, the psychoanalytic and biological psychiatry, that was back and forth between like the 50s and the 70s, and anyway, super great book. People are choosing that target, and certainly Helen Mayberg's work, which is identified a target on essentially the basis of fMRI, right?
fMRI and diffusion MRI. I think they.
Well, I think they refined it with diffusion, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think they're mainly using diffusion now for like the mapping and the surgical implantation targeting.
I see.
Yeah, they I think they started with fMRI.
I mean, certainly she's well known for the fMRI, and pre-surgical planning isn't usually done without multimodal, right? Without multimodal data. It's in the pleasure shock where she started to cover Mayberg's work, that she's going over the fact that I think after about 11 patients, and they had like success in 8 out of 11 or something like that, and then they went back and were looking and found that tractography was like one of the best predictors of efficacy, and like hitting like the intersection of like 3 bundles. So
the bundles connecting the subgenual cingulate and somewhere in some of the frontal region.
Well, it's
three. It's like a 3-node network, right?
Yeah. And that's when I realized that I haven't read any of Mayberg's papers in a long time, and that it would be totally worth it, right? I mean, and also, I mean, again, like, interesting relation to Neuralink. Not that they're going to be the end all be all of psychiatry, but like that would be a really hard target to hit with a link device, because of where it's located. Is not where you're going to really want to replace skull and have short wires in.
What you mean? It's too deep?
Yeah. I mean, it's like
but
when
it's
kind
really, I mean, they probably can't have long wires, but I guess if you were going to have a long wire, it'd be easier to kind of thread it down the fissure between the hemispheres than anywhere else. A medial target. But I think the reason why they can't have long wires is because they don't work if they're too long, presumably.
I'd also be worried about the interference with the other wires around them, or how they're insulating the wires themselves, because if, like, I'm worried that someone's going to end up getting a concussion with one of these in, and one of the wires will short in such a way that all the energy in whatever battery it has in it will be dumped straight into a person's brain. Like, I don't know how many things they can do to just make sure there's cutoffs for every possible scenario.
Well, one thing you could say to that is, it's not really a very good answer, but in the case of highly intractable psychiatric problems, one of the most effective alternatives is electrical convulsive therapy, which is literally discharging an extremely strong battery into your brain.
I mean, induces is the goal.
Yeah. So, okay, that might be a feature, not a bug.
Right. I mean, you're kind of at that point, and I don't think that is necessarily what they really want to do at the end of the day. But there's more acute things that you could worry about than the relatively small Neuralink battery discharging, I guess. I mean, tell that to the.
Maybe it explodes.
Yeah, like, that's another thing. Batteries can explode, and like it's all about the battery density. Like, the only difference between a actual explosive and a battery is the density of the energy in it and how fast you decide to release that energy. Like, it is literally just about changing energy from one form to another, and that's both what explosives and what batteries do.
And well, how many people said that about mobile phones?
And
from time to time.
Yeah. And I'd rather have my phone explode in my pocket than a small battery that's literally replacing a chunk of my skull explode.
I mean, it's a good question. Like I had in the slides, the Tim Dennison article in the Royal Society of Engineering, like, kind of review of bioelectronic medicine, is really great, because it's like, this isn't just a brain implant problem, right? Like, the cardiac implants have had this for some time, and they care about, like, the safety in some ways even more, right? Like, this is a device that's literally keeping you alive, so like, downtime is not an option on this, right? And
exploding is not an option.
Circumstances of life accidents and things like that, like, are all just as applicable, right? Like cardiac implants, you could wear into the MR, and all sorts of other cool things, and it would be, and so, super excited to have Joe Crude join us, maybe like end of October, to talk about cochlear implants, because not as sensitive, but like, again, like, you still don't want those things going wrong when they're attached to your nervous system.
I've had a couple of friends who've had them get a bit weird, and they say it's like, it's a headache. It's like, but it's like, they can't explain how it hurts, because it's like, it's different than like what a headache would usually be. Like, yeah, some of them have had to had theirs rewired a couple times, but yeah, it's
I mean, again, like it's interesting in this book. They've got lots of these people's debriefing these subjects while they've got chronically implanted electrodes and asking them how it feels, and in some ways like how obviously somewhat painless it is, right, in the sense that you don't have pain receptors there, but that like a lot of weird things can happen too, and the stories are fascinating. Definitely recommend it, and looking for more of that, and definitely we'll try and follow up in terms of the targets for other areas of psychiatry that were revealed at this Congress, which I have not followed up on, even though I had a link. So let's just quickly turn to John and ask if there's any EEG notebooks or Open BCI data challenge updates you want to mention.
There aren't any massive interesting updates. There is a lot of behind the scenes work going on with regard to REB, which isn't interesting, but kind of take it from me is a lot of work.
No, I totally understand how much work that is, and but you liked the idea of also perhaps using BrainHack as a time to bring up this project.
I think that'll be perfect time, because we're still aiming for the Open BCI NTX challenge thing. We're still aiming for basically November start date. And we've been working on getting the software in good nick. There is still work to be done, but we definitely want that to be the case for the start date. So we'll be in a good position to kind of identify things to pull people in on, and things are in kind of good shape to start kind of broadening the developer group, which is kind of one of the next things on the agenda really for this project.
Yeah, so I just dropped a link in for BrainHack. I don't actually see on here the 2020 dates, but I posted in Slack the Twitter announcement. And I haven't actually been on Mattermost in a long time, but that is where BrainHack meets, and I forget, is it mattermost.brainhack.org or?
Jaden, any comments on EEG notebooks? And by the way, I just noticed I've been looking over at you from time to time and thinking he's been very kind of interested in stuff today. He's had this kind of slight, attentive face quite consistently, and I realized you just put a photo up. You've been staying still and like not moving.
Oh, is there just a stuck like image of me up right now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
I like how you've been doing this like.
Well, let me. Did it fix it?
Well, now it's your initials.
Oh, weird.
Oh, sorry, man. I thought that was intentional.
No.
It was a good start.
Oh, should have saved it.
Anyway, yeah. Well, any comments? Just over knows, like Jaden has really been the workhorse on all of the major developments for the last few months on EEG notebooks, and I've been kind of second fiddle to his coding by and large, but trying to kind of orchestrate things a little bit as well. But yeah, Jaden.
Yeah, your lead's been a huge help. Nothing huge updates other than I'm integrating the Notion 2 now because I have it, and I believe Andre just pushed an update to BrainFlow today that includes the Notion 2. So I'll have the update for EG notebooks this weekend, and yeah, other than that, everything still seems to be working well. I'll have Andre test the brain bit, and any luck with the unicorn yet, Morgan?
Not on. I don't have my. I don't have my testing platform. Sorry.
Okay. No worries.
I mean, in that Andre is saying like just on Linux. So if I make some space for the dongle here, I can do it. But yeah.
Okay.
But I did just I just went to the door and got my Notion.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah,
it's really awesome.
So hopefully we're gonna have AJ on and to talk about it
tonight.
No, but sometime they were totally super focused on trying to get this out to people. And
I've done some just some preliminary testing with it. The data is so clean, it's insane. And I did some of their base kinesis testing, and it works really well. I just did one, it was for my tongue movement because I thought that might be kind of a difficult one to capture. And sure enough, it after 30 trials of just a few seconds, it was capturing at 80 to 90%.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm again super excited. Definitely have what do we got? 10 minutes. So
I've got another quick point on that. Just adjacent is I've been still looking into Muse S recording options. I think we discussed this last time, right?
Well,
I think so.
I saw what you posted on Slack and was curious what people said. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were a few suggestions. One was use Mind Monitor, which so far it hasn't worked for me for an 8-hour recording. It's worked for me for a 3-hour recording, and I don't know what Mind Monitor is the Android app.
From Interaxon.
It's I think it has some kind of, it's not from Interaxon, but I think the guy who wrote it worked for them at some point or something like that. And it's kind of, I think, a unofficially kind of approved piece of software, like there are a few of them actually. So Mind Monitor is the best app for doing mobile stuff with Muse.
Okay.
And
just dropped
it works well for it definitely works okay for recordings of up to a few hours, but I haven't managed to basically I tried for a proper overnight recording. That's just what this is. The background to this is when you run a really long recording, then you're running against this issue of your Bluetooth connection dropping out for one or several reasons, and then a lot of the time that's not something that's robustly dealt with in the streaming and recording tools that are used. So you just lose your recording, which is rubbish. So you want something that deals with a signal loss of signal stream minimally by just saving what it's got, which I don't think many things don't even do that. They just stop. And then ideally reinitiating a stream if it's lost. Yeah. So that's kind of, so Mind Monitor doesn't really do that, but it does seem to at least kind of stream robustly. But as I said, it didn't seem, so far it hasn't seemed to manage to do a really long thing. The other thing is that you're right at the limit of the battery life for the device.
Yeah.
So there's these other small niggly things of I need to make sure my phone is fully charged and plugged in, and I need to make sure that the Muse is fully charged to run for 8 hours. And then I don't know exactly what happens if this thing actually runs out of battery, whether that also means that the data's lost, or whether there's then it just gets saved when it dies. There's lots of just things like that become part of this. But in any case, at this point, it looks like Mind Monitor might be a good option. But as I said, it's not performing. I've definitely not had success yet for long recordings. I tried with Blue Muse, Muse LSL, and I had this issue that basically, as I said, the streams disconnect with Blue Muse. It's pretty robust, but it's not perfect. So where I was kind of getting to was probably something like Blue Muse with Muse LSL, and then some additional intelligent thing that's like reinitiating the stream, and also breaking it up into whatever half-hour recording blocks or something, to at least make it robust, to make sure it keeps stuff for rather than like losing your entire recording when you get one stream break.
Yeah.
Another option that I'm looking into is that Muse have some developer functionalities that's kind of locked on their apps, that are available if you ask them nicely. But I don't know if that ends up being any better than the Mind Monitor gear at the end of the day. That's and it's kind of going via their servers as well.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But I'm still trying to I'm still looking into it, basically. Oh yeah, one other thing is Sami Jawar has this. He replied on that thread as well, and he has this. Sami's really smart guy. Met him at the Case in High School, and really had guy in lots of ways. And he has this meditation neurofeedback project that has some of the functionality that I just described about like being a bit more intelligent with chunking and so on in terms of a Muse LSL connection.
Yeah.
So in looking into whether it's possible to kind of directly adapt some of the stuff that he's got there. But bottom line, still trying to figure out how to get an overnight sleep recording with this mofo. Still don't know. Open to, other people's experiences and input.
Is that the Muse S?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Dan's got some links. We ran into that issue too. We're from Pedal. And we have a little desktop app that uses HCI Bluetooth, so you need a proper dongle for it, but it'll auto reconnect and then reinitiate an LSL stream with the Muse S. We don't know why it happens yet, but hopefully we
awesome. Yeah, you replied to the thread as well. I was looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
But a super important question, because
it's Michael. Sorry, Dan. It was Dan who replied, right?
Dan's crew. I'm working with Dan, so yeah, Michael here.
Okay.
Well, I'd love to see. I'd love to, I'd love to have you report back, or keep reporting back on this, because super important. Getting any kind of real, sleep EEG would be awesome. And
yeah, I want to figure this out, and I want to be wearing this thing for months and have like my same as my Aura ring. And Aura they do a good job of it, right? It's different, obviously a different kind of thing, but I have an app, and I turn on the app, and it gives me these numbers. That's like, this was your sleep. And Muse don't have that yet. I heard rumors that they're going to be kind of having that functionality, but it would be nice to have a hack route to that as well.
Sure.
So we'll have it at some point. It's just there's lots of little technical roadblocks along the way.
So I got a nice message from Kagler Kaken, if you remember the Neurolib developer. And let me just see. Anyway, he's built his own. He's going to come to Hack Night Paris and talk about the little sleep device that he built. I don't know whether it'll, it's a sleep tracker. Raspberry Pi Zero sleep tracker.
Cool.
Anyway, but I don't know, it's still love to see what we can do in terms of keeping the recordings or being robust with the Bluetooth loss. And sorry, just replying to a few people. So usually at the beginning, hi Alex. Usually at the beginning, I ask if there's anybody new here this evening. And if so, please love to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what brings you here. I'm sorry I didn't do that earlier.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Am I the only new today?
It's you're the only one who stepped forward bravely.
All right. So, well, my name is Raimundo Casani. Just Ray is fine.
Yeah.
And I have been trying to join, but because I'm in the east time, it's like 3 hours. So sometimes a bit hard, but I was able to make it. Cool. Yeah, I'm in Montreal, and I do research on physiological signals mostly. Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I'm super glad, and I believe you're gonna come back and talk to us someday.
Yes.
Yes, cool. Looking forward to it. And sorry that the link up becomes it's anyway. Sorry to leave you outside for a little bit. I should check the Slack more. But glad to have you here. And anybody else want to introduce yourself? Well, oh yes, hi.
I'm trying to see if this is gonna work.
Oh, hey, Lisa.
Hey, how you doing? I am really excited. I've been sort of lurking for a while. I am a co-founder of Creative Commons, and I do Aaron Swartz Day every year with hackathons all over the world. And I do work with Ryan Sternlick and Alex on a virtual reality museum. Alex is amazing, and he's the reason why I wanted to make sure to see his talk tonight. And I've been excited about this stuff since the 90s or so. I'm actually Timothy Leary's digital librarian, and I edited his last book. And his last book is actually about a guy in a straitjacket in a padded cell typing over a laptop to his doctors and friends in 1995, and he wanted his stuff in a virtual museum. So it kind of went from there. I worked for Ray Kurzweil for a while in 2008, and I worked on a book with Ben Gortzel and another AI person. So I've just been dipping in and out of it for years, and I'm just excited mainly to lurk and watch what you guys do. So thanks.
You've also contributed to the diversity group here at NeurotechX.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And I'm waiting to hear back from
sure
on that process. But yeah, it's no rush or anything. But I'm like I said,
no. But
maybe it's excited.
But anyway, awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
It's been a while since I've done something formally for Aaron Swartz Day. But we did something for ECRs in psychiatry a couple of years ago in the UK for Aaron Swartz Day.
Awesome.
Anyway, glad to have you here. Want to use that as an opportunity to also say we're still accepting applications for the diversity group and committee and consortium. And so please check on Slack. I think we're trying to get things at least last applications in by September 30th, and it'd be a couple of weeks after that. But part of that is that our Abby, who's been leading the effort, has moved to her new job in Zurich, and which is super exciting. And anyway, so she's been obviously a little busy with that.
Great. And my thing is testing. I was really excited listening to all the research being done on the sleep stuff and stuff like that. That's the kind of thing where as soon as there's something available, I would build one and try to have hackathons building them or whatever, and just trying to get data. It sounds like we need more data. So maybe that's something I could help with in the future. But for now, I'm just happy to listen to people and learn stuff.
Sure. Well, yeah, I would certainly wanted, when we talked at the diversity group, you know, especially about perhaps using a hackathon or that kind of community effort to also work on some translations. And
Right.
yeah, so
that's what I was told diversity needed.
Yeah.
So that was,
yeah.
that's
So
something we could definitely do.
Definitely looking forward to that. So good to see you again.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So let me switch over to our first speaker of the evening. And so Dan is founder and CEO of Pedal Tech. And Dan, you're in Austin, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
I myself am in Austin. We've got a couple of the crew here on the phone, so I'll give them to a couple seconds into to introduce themselves.
Sure.
Yeah, we've got a couple in Austin. Me in Austin, a couple out in Chicago, and then another in Boston on the call tonight. So, Chris, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we can go around the table?
Please.
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyways, hi, Chris Davis, CTO for Pedal Tech. I'm over connecting all the things. I love connecting like all the noise data we get from BCI and pulling it through all the different servers and making something really cool on the UI side.
Yep, Michael here. Do a lot of the local application development at Pedal and a lot of proofs of concept. So really enjoying it. Pretty psyched to show some stuff off today.
Cool.
Cool. And if you guys can hear me, I'm James. I'm also with Pedal, and I do all the brain stuff.
Awesome. And so can I ask how many of you are coming from either neuroscience or computational neuroscience?
So James is definitely our neuroscience guy. I can kind of hop into the breakdown then too. My background is in interaction design, so doing a lot with user experience design for emerging technologies. Worked with Magic Leap for a while, and then Accenture and their immersive tech. And then we've also got systems level engineering. You know what? This might be a good time to, I guess, start sharing my screen. So
yeah, please.
If that's all right. All right. I don't recognize these icons, so I might need
some help. Yeah. And so, yeah, everybody has a little Jitsi learning curve here down in the bottom left corner, but it's the middle one, the middle icon.
Hopefully you guys should see it yourselves.
If you want, you can always select, you don't have to select your whole screen with the Jitsi. Well, you've got it. Okay.
I put all my embarrassing photos away, so hopefully we don't see any. Yeah, so we've got the Pedal team on here today. If you have any questions or feedback or anything and want to reach out, feel free to just Slack me. I'm at Dan. Some things that we'll cover tonight. I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but I do have some exciting stuff to share with you. So we'll
make time. Can people see the slides?
I'm sorry?
I couldn't tell if you were showing slides and I couldn't see them and other people could.
Yeah.
So you, if you might want to select Dan's screen.
Yeah, there's a sidebar, or with all the different people on call, you need to select or deselect the one you want to look at. In this case, Dan's screen. And then afterwards, after the talk, it usually auto deselects, but doesn't always work. But yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So then we'll spend a little bit of time. I just want to introduce you to some tools that may simplify your BCI workflow. I understand that we kind of have a mixed crowd, you know, some people in academia, some that are hobbyist software developers. We may have other artists or hackers. Either way, I put this presentation on dark mode because it is a little bit later, so hopefully that's not too disruptive to anyone.
I appreciate
it. We'll follow up with a demo and show you guys some of this stuff in action, and then open it up for just kind of an open conversation.
Yeah.
So to review the team again, we come from kind of mixed backgrounds. James is our brain guy with the clinical psychology background. He's working on his PhD. We have a Michael who is really involved in the operating system level code, C++ and Python and basically everything, and spent some time over at the MIT lab. And then Chris, who is another software engineering guru, 3-time CTO. These folks are really humble, but some of the smartest people I definitely know, and so hopefully you guys can learn some things from them as well.
Cool.
So we've been around for close to 3 years now, and a lot of our work and effort has been on research and development type of tools. We've done stuff with SSVEP and custom displays. We've messed around with hardware prototyping and have created virtual reality applications and demos for different groups of people. One of the things we'll show tonight too is our gestures, and so we're working on hands-free gestures as well. Connecting EMG signals as well as BCI or EEG to left click, right click. We've done things in the art installation space. So this was basically multiplayer muse and cross-correlating multiple brains, and measuring their focus. And have done things in Touch Designer too, so a popular visualization and music framework. So kind of have touched a lot of different pieces, and so I'll talk about that gestures piece a little bit more. And so one of the initiatives that we're doing is building this biometric gesture library, because we want to help people interact with things without their hands and without their voice. So on the right side there is one of our alpha developers who's actually using pedal gestures to synthesize DNA without using his hands. Now, at its most basic level, all he's really doing is clicking a mouse, but it's the application of it that I think is pretty amazing. What you can do with these simple mappings, from gestures to functions. So what we do, we have some desktop software that allows you to collect data. It's pretty much a revision of PsychoPy, and we've added some customizations there because we think that timing really is important when measuring these data. So we'll collect it and automatically label it. Then we apply machine learning algorithms so that we can classify different gestures. And then we're adding those to a gesture library. And so this is still in alpha development. It's not quite yet ready for widespread use, but if you find this extremely interesting or want to get involved, please just let us know. We're happy to help out anyone that we think this would be useful for. So the next two tools are things that are actually available, and we're first releasing these tonight to the NeurotechX community because we think this is where the strongest fit is. So the first thing is our Metrics API. It's a cloud API that takes in EEG data and in real time will do pre-processing and analyze that data. Complementary to that, we have the control panel. And so this is a desktop application that automatically connects your device. Right now we work with Muse and OpenBCI primarily, and what we can actually say we support. It streams EEG data and allows you to manage these API keys. So this is really useful if you're not a developer. I mean, myself, I'm coming from a design and interaction background. It's a great shortcut to be able to connect and stream right away, but certainly not necessary. You can still use curl commands or what have you to connect your device or your existing processes. But the main idea that we're trying to convey is we're trying to simplify the process so that you don't have to do so much of the heavy lifting. So let me go into a little bit more detail on the Metrics API. All of this is available too. If you check out our website, we're just pedal.tech and then /metrics API for this one. I think we'll drop the link in the chat then too. We've got a couple of handy resources. But like I said, you start out with EEG data, and this can be through your own processes or through the control panel. And you'll send that then to be pre-processed. And James will definitely be the one that can add a lot more detail here. But it can be fully customized, and you can mess with each of the different parameters of these steps, or you can take the recommended default and just get pre-processed data returned. So in addition to just the pre-processed data, you can get things like band power. We're working on different mental states then too, like visual attention or disengagement, and just kind of abstracting that one more level. But it also includes artifact rejection, and we've got a really neat demo on that of rejecting certain artifacts. So this is the control panel that I was talking about. On the right-hand side, it's very simple. I probably should have excluded this part from the graphic here, but you just create an account, and after you're finished with that, up in the corner you can click to get your API key. And like I said, we're offering this first to NeurotechX developers or just the community at large. And then you'll just copy that key and it'll expire, in 6 days. So we encourage you to try it out. It's free, and we'll give you access to all the metrics functionality. The control panel is also good just for connecting the device, streaming, and then auto reconnecting if your device suddenly loses that connection. So that one's available at our website /downloads. Something that we're also doing too is sending metrics into Unity. That way you can easily use any kind of BCI in games or virtual reality or simulations. So what you're looking at is kind of a simplified version of our Unity SDK that we're working on, where it brings in the band power values and just kind of gives you an easier way to get the brain into VR. So I kind of sped through that, I realized. I think I was talking a little bit more than I had practiced, but these are some great getting started resources. I would recommend starting out with the documentation on the top left or our getting started repo. And that essentially has different examples in Python, in Node.js to get you started. And that can be anything from streaming over LSL or I guess I don't want to butcher the examples too much, but just I encourage you, check out that link, give it a try. It's free, and we'd love to hear what you think. We're obviously this is the first time that we're sharing it with people, so there's going to be bugs, there's going to be stuff that's not quite perfect, and we want to understand, how this might be useful to people. So if you find it interesting or useful at all, feel free to contact us either on the website or on the NeurotechX Slack. What we'll do next then is we'll switch over to James. He's got some demo prepared for us. And then after we'll switch over to questions and kind of openly discuss this if there's time and get y'all's feedback.
Sure.
So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hopefully we can pivot over to James successfully.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm James. I'm gonna show you just kind of like how to use this API. So basically, let me see here with this share screen. Can everyone see my screen?
I believe so, yep.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, this API, you can check out our documentation if you're interested in the kind of functions it has. We have a few pre-processing algorithms such as filtering and stuff, and some of our metrics, you can get back your full pre-processed data if you want to go for it, or you can just get certain calculations, whatever you're interested in. So I'm going to show you just me getting band power out of this and kind of visually displaying my brainwaves from the API in real time. So here's just a little clip of me opening our control panel, the GUI that Dan mentioned earlier, and just getting my API key again, because I still need to get my API keys the old-fashioned way. And we also display battery level for you. This was earlier today, 25%. I've noticed the Muse kind of messes up a little bit when it gets real low battery. I know the Bluetooth connection can be shaky, so recommend charging at least to 50% has been useful just to get clean data. So that was the API call, and here is the visualization of just what you're getting back from the API. So here I'm calling back basically the band power of my brain, so just alpha waves in this example, and I'm just averaging them across channels or displaying them. And then you also get back a array of artifacts for your 4 channels in the Muse in this example, but we plan on like supporting other devices. I mean, certain other devices like the Open BCI, you can place your channels anywhere. So that in terms of detecting artifacts, it definitely depends on where your channels are placed. So locations would be useful. But here is just using a Muse S, and you can see on the screen, I paused it when a blink was detected. So we detect blinks for you, and it comes back in just an array telling you which channel has a blink in it. And then here's me in the corner over here, just still going along, blinking along. Some of our other ones are interpolations. So if there's any good channel, we can also interpolate the other data for you based on the good channels. And here's some HEOG artifacts. So this is me moving my eyes like left and right. So kind of like eye movements around the screen, which can also cause artifacts. If anyone here does a lot of EEG, you know that the eyes are kind of the bane of our existence, right? So blinks and horizontal eye movements, and then just, catching general artifacts as well. So in a minute here, I'm about to like shake my headband, and you can see all the channels are bad. So when all the channels are artifactual, we can't really interpolate anything. And this is just to make it super kind of streamlined and easy for any kind of BCI applications you're doing. So you don't have to worry about like all these artifacts or detecting them. And here I just changed the screen to show a rolling average of band power. So this is something I would probably use in like an application. I have fun in my free time, playing Mario Kart with this, kind of turning the speed onto focus. So the higher my alpha activity, the slower my kart goes. But this is kind of showing the rolling averages that I would use for an application like that. And it detects the blinks for you as well, and tells you when your data has been interpolated. And when you do detect stuff like horizontal eye movements, you might want to, be suspicious of that data. And the red here indicates bad data. So when all the channels are bad, so just total artifact. Maybe I was like, if you wiggle your headband or clench your jaw or something like that. Here's me wiggling my headband again, coming out bad. And then some blinks and stuff like that. And this is just an example of kind of how you can just like visualize the stuff coming back from the API. But here's me actually opening a file that auto saves to show me my session results, to see kind of my band power over time. I mean, this is just alpha activity. So looking at the average alpha, you can see artifacts pretty cleanly and interpolated data. And so when you make your application, you would just use kind of the good stuff, and you would maybe interpolate data, or at least maybe like take the rolling average or like the last average to keep your application going so it doesn't freak out at some bad data. So that's just, little video of me playing around with displaying some of the API. The goal here is to kind of make it as simple as possible so that you can focus on developing applications that work for your brain for brain-computer interface, or if you're interested in other things like at the end there, I showed you kind of like a session log. So sometimes I play video games and record my alpha activity or band power activity throughout. I know a lot of you earlier were talking about sleep. So sleep has been super interesting to me, and kind of using this method. My partner wants to learn to lucid dream using this. That's what she's interested in it. So you can kind of real time detect when you're in REM sleep, especially with the Muse S. It picks up horizontal eye movements really well, and you kind of like chime in when they're dreaming, right, with some sort of like dream talisman. I know a professor I'm hanging out with at Northwestern, Ken Poller, he's into sleep stuff, and they were trying to do a lucid dream study where they communicate back with kind of like horizontal eye movement Morse code. So while they're sleeping, and solve math problems. So that was kind of a funny little example of how you could do that kind of automatically. But there's I know that's the real-time applications, but some people are interested in kind of like, non-real-time, just collecting data, which is completely possible as well and totally doable. Yeah, so that's kind of just an example of what, and then I also wanted to mention, I know Dan mentioned this, I wanted to highlight that through it's LSL supported. So, I mean, once you get your EEG back processed and stuff, you can send it over LSL. And our next speaker, I believe, is the one who made it possible to do this in Unity, the LSL for Unity package, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. And so sending this data over LSL into Unity can really be fun, or just, I mean, LSL is supported by so many languages, so you can kind of send this to your favorite application.
So the link I dropped in was actually from the Lab Streaming Layer GitHub, and I believe that's Chad Boulay. Anyway, but I'm hoping that Alex is going to talk about some of the Unity work that he's been doing, and yeah, so definitely hoping that we can have some discussion about issues getting into Unity and yeah, best APIs or best code frameworks for doing that. So glad you use that same lib LSL C sharp. Sorry about that.
Oh no, I understand. Yeah. I got a dog too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we have to show tonight. Obviously, there's a lot more that we would want to fit into this presentation, but if you guys have questions about any of the specifics or more broadly, we're happy to discuss them.
So I downloaded the Win10 pedal controller, and did you say that you're going to kind of distribute a code or something, a usage code?
So if you go up, if you create an account and then click on the drop down in the right hand corner, it should say get API key, and then that'll be the key then that you replace in a lot of the code examples that are in the documentation.
All right. Okay. Got it.
About how long till, or have you published the Unity asset package for or API for using your system with Unity yet?
So we haven't published it yet. We're still doing internal testing on that, just to wrap some minor things up, some cross-platform issues that we have been, I guess, running into. But we're hoping to make that available as soon as possible, because we see how useful that can be for games and VR and just about every platform. So but we'll let you guys know as soon as that's further along in development, or if you have a specific application that you want to work on, we're happy to help integrate as much as possible. So just let us know.
I mean, I know Alex is going to speak about his experience, but there's quite a few people here who I know also do Unity and VR stuff, and getting more ability to use biosensors, e.g., eye tracking, and all that into Unity really helps. Like I have application designs that require it, and it's really cool to see more like APIs and stuff starting to come out. I'm definitely going to look into trying out your guys' stuff when it's available.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, we've done some eye tracking work then too. It was primarily around two different brains trying to cross correlate and see, where on the screen they were looking and at what time was their attention, the highest and that sort of thing. So integrating with Toby is something that we're, looking to continue to support. I reached out to them this summer too, because we were doing a lot of the hands-free gesture stuff. I've recently gotten really bad. Well, it's not a carpal tunnel yet, but it's on the way. And so we want to try and figure out a better way of navigating a mouse and, being able to use those gestures. So I think eye tracking and EEG is a beautiful match. So
yeah, I want to use that in a number of games and application designs, like literally create gesture-based menus where, like, if you look at a certain thing in a specific order, it triggers some action. Like, pretty much, it would work a lot better with pictogram-based, like, systems more than written UI. But luckily, a lot of phone-based stuff is also now partially pictogram and color coded. So combining eye tracking and EG should allow for pretty good correlation.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, as an interaction design nerd too, I'm always thinking about how we can either make that more efficient or easier to use. And right now the gaze or I guess the dwell interaction for eye tracking is not ideal. It takes too long.
Yeah.
Can be very annoying to use. So on the actual interface stuff, not talking just between the brain and computer, but the display, we're doing a lot of research as well, and have some, I think, some fun projects in the works, but more to come.
Is Morgan back? Yep.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So, and what are your plans with the company? Oops. So, when you do have full release, I mean, is it primarily for developers, or do you have any of your own applications in mind in terms of? I mean, this seems like you could be doing something in neurofeedback. I saw, maybe talking about sleep. There's a number of applications. Is there any that you're particularly focused on, or is it more for developers?
Well, so primarily tools for developers so that we can support those kind of industries. However, I mean, we're getting feedback from a bunch of different groups, and I think it's early on in our company still where we're trying to really hone in on where can we help the people out the most, right? So we're thinking, developers, but kind of as a broad term, people who want to make or make use of BCI, and so. Whether that means you code or whether that means you just kind of have an easy GUI to be able to make these connections. We're also thinking of an if this then that type of thing. Just making a little applet. That way, you don't even have to worry about the neuroscience stuff, right? Because neuroscience is hard for a lot of people. I mean, I might not be talking to the right people for that, but we want to make it as easy as possible to transform your thoughts into actions. So I don't think that there's a specific industry necessarily that we're stuck on, but more horizontal of how can we get people from A to B.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and just just to chime in there, we've dabbled in a lot of. There's a lot of people interested in using the brain to control stuff, and a lot of them don't have a lot of neuroscience experience. So we worked with, the Musathon, where basically the muses control the lights in the room at an art installation, and we've also played with a group called Oscillations. We partnered with, and they made a Oculus VR. Basically, they brought a bunch of viral dancers from around the world into one place and made a VR video of them and changed some of the scenery and the video based on your brain activity. So that was pretty fun. And there's just a lot of really cool developers out there. So we are taking kind of, I think, a developer-oriented approach at the moment. But if we find a project we really like, I mean, we would be totally willing to partner and hang out and create something cool.
Yeah, if you've got a link to the Musathon or any of the art projects, I'd love to see them, or super interested in those kinds of things. Certainly, one of the first projects that NeurotechX or Neurotech San Francisco was involved in was a project at the Exploratorium, which was, and it was a similar, or perhaps a similar project, but an interactive art display of everyone's kind of power spectrums, or at least an abbreviated version of them.
Those are the fun ones, because that's where you could really feel, like you are telepathic and you have this connection with the thing. It's magical, right? The first time that you feel that, and you're like, holy crap, I controlled that, or this is reading my brain. It's nuts.
Yeah. And it sounded like, when you were initially talking about, maybe you were doing some between device correlations, so something akin to hyperscanning.
I don't know that term specifically.
Well, just like when you're collecting data from more than one subject, and you're interested in kind of like the synchronization of the inter-subject data.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. That so yeah, it's a technical term for it, but
James is the brain guy. I'm just here to help bring it to the people.
Sure, but it sounds like. There are lots of applications for, kind of EEG based BCIs. But I was wondering, are you using, or, how much of this is coming out of any particular research projects? Or is this more like separate from any particular research? This is, you're just using your technical backgrounds to create this.
Yeah, so this is separate from research. We're just using our technical backgrounds. We just got together 3 years ago and all decided we're all interested. We all have skills and we want to create something cool. And we along the way kind of went down a lot of different pathways, and it's been pretty exciting.
Because the reason I ask, or certainly there are other areas of research like HCI, right? Like where, or to use other terms like spatial computing, right? Where there's kind of a mix of signals, including say brain signals, and you talked about previously working with Magic Leap and devices like that. Like it is its own area, and I don't, somewhat related, or certainly after the Facebook Connect conference, there's a lot to be said about we've talked a little bit about this, and I'm hoping we'll get somebody from maybe Project North Star who's working on it as a research topic, but the kind of hand controls that you have in VR and what you're able to do with them, it is still somewhat, I don't want to say clunky, because it's still amazing, but it's it needs something else. When you're not actually actually interacting with matter.
Yeah.
Except like virtually. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Or yeah, so yeah, Project North Star is definitely interested, and I don't know who's going to be speaking with us. But they've just been a bit busy the past couple weeks with their new versioning. But yeah, I've talked with quite a few of them extensively, including I know a lot of their original interaction designers. And like
let's not forget they were Leap Motion, right? So like
they
were kind of like
still are, but yeah. Though our main developer actually just was contracted to do this. He the original like person who I helped out who did a lot of the hardware backend for the Project North Star, and then a couple people were brought in to help with interaction design, including Kechi Matsuda, who did hyper reality. He helped a bit with a few with interaction designs where they based the UI around a person's hand, so you could do things like click on certain parts of your palm, and in AR there'd be buttons on your palm, and you could do different interactions by clicking certain parts. If you turned your wrist, stuff would pop out. It would pretty much a lot of interactions based on where you'd have either a watch or a cell phone. Like, I don't think they ever finished the design, but I talked with one of them about where if you hold your hand in a certain way, a virtual phone pretty much pops up and you can interact with it as if it was a real phone. But like that, it is accurate enough that you could type with your finger on a virtual keypad, but the overall like it didn't hold up nearly often enough. So having eye tracking or EG just to help a person confirm what they're trying to do is the step that is currently desired for a lot of AR applications to really have that next level of it just works.
Yeah, I think a big problem that a lot of whoever's engineering or designing these things, is assuming that you have ready access to your hands, right? And that might be due to temporary or permanent or situational disabilities. You might be on a subway or something holding, just the rail, like there's a lot of different situations, too many where you need either reach or speech. And I think it's a lot easier to maybe not over engineer the system and make it as simple as moving your eyebrows. We have this whole area of real estate. You can still have gestures, where you have an up brow or a down brow. You can wink, and right there you got 4 degrees of freedom. So I think there's definitely something to be said about simplicity, because you don't need eye tracking hardware to do that, right?
Yeah.
And
or
so if you yeah.
But there's also cases like I can only blink in one eye. I know way more people who have problems with facial control than they do motor, like hand motor control. Like, you need all the options, but you are right that right now hand-based gesture control is the main focus. I've tried a few large gesture-based ones where it isn't hand, but it's like whole body gestures. At a couple events, and that was really cool. Or eye tracking, where like in VR they'd show you a object with a path on it, and you'd follow that path with your eye, and it would trigger something. So like if you outline a path with your eyes, or I've also tried focal like focus things for like shooting a Nerf gun, which is always fun. Just like thinking about shooting a Nerf gun and it shoots a bullet, like that was very gimmicky, but a lot of fun.
Totally. Yeah, so whatever system is in place, I think it needs to be flexible because, yeah, like you mentioned, the facial movements are not as easy for everyone. And it needs to be flexible enough where you could take some input, train it, say, hey, this is what I want to map to, this command, right? And be able to make either your own gestures or your own audio, right? LSL or over OSC, you can use input audio, train it, and then have that, basically be an extension of your body, right? I mean, if you want to turn on the light, really all you're doing is you're going over there to make the connection between some wires. Is that not just an extension of your own arm? Like, I don't know. I guess maybe we're getting a little too too out there, but it's fun to think about.
It's interesting, and it is its own research area, right? Like, and I have to imagine that. Well, we know that in subsuming control labs that that Facebook Reality Labs is thinking about all sorts of additional inputs, right? And anyway, it's definitely something that we're hoping to learn more about. There's lots of really interesting work going on in the hand tracking space, yeah, hopefully we'll hear more about that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going. I just want to say I don't think you were too far out there at all. Dan, I think it was the natural progression that where these discussions need to go. In terms of the natural options for doing things and stuff like that.
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I like hearing. I mean, like I'm assuming. Well, from what James, or I forget who commented on this, but yeah, if we're all using, I definitely like us to identify when we're all building on top of common code, like the libc# from lab streaming layer, in particular for Unity, and things like, or like, as much as you can talk about what you end up. I mean, I think you're using Muse LSL, right, in terms of connectivity.
Michael probably can speak mostly to that.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, we don't actually use Muse LSL. We do our own custom time correction on the LSL stream and use raw Bluetooth connection.
Okay.
But we stream it over LSL, so it's similar, but not quite.
I see. Okay. Well, then, yeah. At some later date, if you were willing to share more about that, like we're super interested. I saw on the Fedora list is that Blue Z is getting fully deprecated, and at least some of our support on Linux has been using that, and so is when they brought that up, it was, and Fedora is usually like a little bit ahead on the curve here, that there are next generation Bluetooth libraries that I should maybe know about, or that we should be considering, and maybe it has something to do with why we're still somewhat limited in terms of the kind of dongles that we can support on. Well, I mean, I know that our code is very dongle specific, which I'm assuming you're able to use any like you're able to use the laptop's Bluetooth, right?
Well, there is a method for doing that we have implemented in a separate project. In this particular control panel release, we are also using sort of the HCI method, where we're just like communicating over serial to the Bluetooth dongle. So we'll be limited slightly as well. But we can definitely support that. It's super easy to just dump that into our current project. It just has to be done.
Okay. Well, yeah.
That reminded me, actually, something I think will start to be more popular, and it could be good to get on it earlier, is support for UWB, ultra wideband, which is a newer short-range protocol that's supposed to, in some aspects, replace Bluetooth for things within like 5 or 10 feet of range, as it's much higher bandwidth and has a under a centimeter of accuracy. And phones are now supporting it, like the newest iPhone and the next generation of a lot of smartphones are about to start supporting it, and dongles are starting to come out with it. It might be something that I don't know if any BCI or Neurotech or biotech hardware is supporting it yet, but it's something I think we could all at some point talk about in depth a bit.
Well, I mean, but Ryan, is that backwards compatible? Because like what we also need is people like Muse and OpenBCI and you know the
that's a problem. It's its own hardware. It's a different frequency. So, but
Sure.
yeah,
I mean,
a problem.
like I would, or certainly I'd prefer if everybody just used Wi-Fi. If, but Michael,
or get Bluetooth working.
Or,
yeah,
or Bluetooth 6 or whatever number they want to call it that actually works and does.
Or a biosensor specific frequency range where it's like, this has to be a biosensor. You can use this range. You won't have abhorrent amounts of interference from your microwave or your TV or your Bluetooth speaker.
There can be lots of yeah. I mean, we need a better protocol. Until then, Michael, I'm super interested when people can answer questions about Bluetooth at a low level. Just because obviously, like it's the kind of thing that we would expect would work, or we need it to work perfectly, and in terms of getting EEG notebooks to have real cross-platform support, it's been a problem, and we've had to kind of depend on different libs on, or different dependencies per OS, and so I not that we've got the time to go into it now, but I'd love to have a Bluetooth discussion where we talk about like why we're all using the Blue Giga dongle.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these libraries use this like HCI method for communicating over serials, the dongle, which then communicates over Bluetooth to the device. We did some experiments with BLE connected to these, like to Muse, to anything that uses Bluetooth, using some built-in to your MOBO, Bluetooth support. This is much more preferable. In fact, you can go as far as web Bluetooth, like stream it over the internet. That's terrifying. So we try to avoid that sort of thing. But
so question on dongles, because I'm up to this point in the installation, and I think I possibly don't get any further. Because do I need this HCI dongle?
Yeah. So we have a little section in our docs where we talk about how to install the driver support for a particular kind of HCI supported dongle. But if there's interest in using Muses right away instead of messing around with the API, we can kind of sprint in that direction and try to get that up and running ASAP.
So when you're saying that, I mean, is this am I correct in saying that like what we're relying on in the chipset that they include is some added functionality that you're calling HCI, which just is sometimes not present in cheaper Bluetooth dongles?
Well, no, you can actually. So I need to look more into it. I don't have all the terminology down. But as far as I'm aware, the API method is kind of like a serial connection to the dongle, which is then having a Bluetooth connection to the device. So you're communicating over serial with the dongle, which kind of gives you more low-level control over the dongle's behavior and what it's doing. Whereas if we go the BLE route, you can't.
Okay.
You really have to go with the more OS level sort of Bluetooth connection and do all the Bluetooth shenanigans.
I guess I'm still trying to get at, and I'm not. You don't feel put on the spot to answer this question. This can be for anybody here. Help me out on this. It's like, again, just like why can't I use my laptop Bluetooth and I'm still using the Blue Giga when at this point, as far as I can tell, we've even in some cases on the Linux, we've commented out any kind of like BG API code, so it's like what is not working, or like
this isn't the Blue Giga dongle, this is a different dongle, right?
Well, so it sounds like you're
so I have Blue Giga.
Gotcha.
So
that's got to be an HCI one, isn't
it? Yeah. So if I could, I know there's like a bunch of questions just came up, but Morgan asked an extremely interesting question before I got the answer to my question that I asked before.
Sorry. Go.
So I don't know if if we can kind of like remember what it is that who's saying, but I have a Blue Giga dongle and I'm not clear, like, do I need a different dongle or what on Windows?
We have we use a particular kind of dongle. We should really release a list of like supported dongles.
Sure.
So we'll get on that, but we use the CSR 8510
right
when we do this.
Okay.
That's it. That's basically just what's on our downloads today, right? I mean, Michael, we have the other Bluetooth functionality built where you don't actually need the dongle. It's just not in the version that's online right now.
We should really just dump that in there.
It'll
make things a little easier.
If make it a million times easier, because I don't. Yeah, like we don't go any further if I don't have the hardware, and I don't have one of those dongles.
Yeah, this is
looks like a cool tool though.
Yeah,
I'd be really interested to get a link to the particular one. Again, partly because I'd really like to pull the tech sheet of that, as well as the Blue Giga, and again, kind of like I'm trying to iterate so I can figure out like what is it that we're using that's not available on these laptop chipsets, and because I don't think it's a library dependency, but anyway,
no, it's hardware. So like that, if you scroll around enough of the Bluetooth Wikipedia stuff, you'll find that like there are about 50 to 60 different substandards within Bluetooth that are implemented on a hardware level on different dongles and stuff. So certain dongles support different charging methodologies, different battery methodologies, different things like serial support is actually implemented on a hardware level sometimes, because when it comes to Bluetooth Low Energy, everything is done on hardware level. It's to use as little power as possible. So once a dongle says it's Bluetooth Low Energy, that means it will never support certain other Bluetooth things that require different bits of hardware. It's
okay.
And then you don't even need to use standard hardware stuff. Like they said, like there's like a couple hundred commands that don't work depending on what dongle it is. And because most people's Bluetooth dongles in a laptop are combined with the Wi-Fi chipset, so that will say you can actually find that info out a lot easier, because those Wi-Fi chipsets, if you know what one you're using, if it's an add-in card especially, you can look it up. Like I actually upgraded mine a half year ago so I could support Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I know Chris also has a lot of experience with Bluetooth too on our team, and can probably speak to it too, about simplification. And Chris?
Yeah, so on top of all the millions of ways they have the chipset set up and everything, and the commands that work and don't work, you then have the complexity of Apple and Microsoft trying to follow the specs for Bluetooth. And those are always it's just like Java and Android. There's a spec out there for it, but it's not, their implementation of it isn't going to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'm kind of asking for is really, what's the best cross-platform that we can use? And, and we've never found it, in the sense that, like, on Windows, we've always used BlueMuse, or,
looking at the code in the Petal API getting started repo, and I mean, it looks like it should work with BlueMuse. Like it's just looking for an LSL stream.
Exactly. I was going to mention real quick, if you can connect your Muse over LSL, or even get your Muse to stream over your computer, you can use the API. The GUI itself is just a way that we stream, and to help make it convenient with the CSR dongle. But if you have your own dongle, which is a BLE112, it looks like, and it works fine, I mean, over Muse LSL, then you can just throw that data up to the API and you'll get a callback.
Yeah, and well, actually in Windows I use BlueMuse.
Oh, nice.
The LED dongle is a bit bit kind of brittle.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, it
mostly
looks
put
like
in these shortcuts for non-coders like me. I was just like, I don't know how to do this kind of stuff, but there's definitely ways to get your data if you're already using it. So
well, so I'd like to switch over, but just one last thing. Yeah, I would really like that link in terms of, I know, asking for a UC Davis student who's seems like could use your API now if they wanted to control, say, their Philips Hue light. Would that be an easy demo that we could find on the website, or is that you could describe? maybe when you come back, or on Slack. But I'd certainly like to see that. What was it called? Musathon, or
yeah. So the actual art installation was called Human Tuner. It's called the East Austin. It's like a big art show every year. But I'll definitely dig out some photos and videos from it. It was a great event. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Chris, Michael, James. Did I get everybody? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks.
And anyone who, if you guys want to reach out, if you have any ideas of what you would like to see or like supported, I mean, this is just an initial release to check out the server and let you guys beta it and, check for bugs and also see how it's working. But if you guys have any ideas of things that would be useful, such as, native Bluetooth over your computer, I mean, just reach out to us and, we're happy to help. That's what we're doing here. So.
Great.
Totally.
Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Cheers. Okay, so 8 o'clock, and as everybody knows, we always stick to our schedule. So just want to introduce Alex Peake, CEO and founder of Primer Labs. And I asked him if he was familiar with Unityversity, and then I check, and it seems like you might have founded that, or... Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, the names came originally from Gamebridge, Unityversity, Gamebridge, because we did it at Noisebridge. We were the first, as far as I know, the first Unity meetup in San Francisco at the time, because it was pretty early. And our first event we held had David Helgeson and Caitlin Meeks show up, because back then they were like, wow, there's someone wants to have a meetup about us. Cool.
That's awesome. Anyway, I mean, I'm on there on the Discord now, And you know, I've been tracking. You know, I mean, it's a great place. I can at least see a number of Unity people both learning and teaching, and so great resource to have. I'm going to turn it over to you in terms of what would you like to show us today?
So I'm going to briefly introduce my project and give a very small demo. So I guess I should do screen share. So back to
bottom, yeah.
Whichever Chrome tab Itzy is hiding in now. Here we go. Okay, so how do I do it? It's the little screen thing?
Yeah, it's the middle one and the three at the bottom left.
Okay. And let's see if this works. Okay, so I'm going to talk about an update on a project that I first gave the very first tech demo of, and it's just about as modest as it is now form. I think it was either 2018 or 2019. And so the inspiration is pretty obvious from the font and the picture, you can tell. And then, there's like nothing ambiguous about what this is inspired by, okay? So we have this classic scene, and the empathy test is something that's quite memorable, and they do a different version of it in 2049 that's much more Orwellian and so on. But this test, if we just replay a clip of it, has anybody here not, first of all, has anybody here not seen the original Blade Runner? I have met people like this. So don't be embarrassed. Okay, so I'm not going to spoil the whole movie. This is an important scene, but it's not going to ruin it, so you should still see it. But basically, they sit down with a interviewee. It kind of looks like a job interview, but they have this amazing machine. And did you guys hear audio?
No.
Audio's not coming through? But anyway, he says, I'm nervous when I take tests. And he says, don't worry, you know, just be calm. I'm going to ask you a few questions and just try to answer them as honestly as possible. And he asks them these questions, right? And this machine is looking at his pupils and doing all this analysis. And that's the magic idea, is can you use analysis to do something a bit better than just what a normal psychologist could do with their training, or what a non-trained person could do in the absence of anyone trained in psychology, right? So there's a slightly less creepy version that's more kind of almost romantic, where he meets the pretty girl and tests her with, you know, kind of a similar experience. But it doesn't have to be a nightmarish Orwellian thing. I really liked this scene because although it's a little bit spooky, you know, it's almost like their first date in a way. Like they're getting to know each other, and this is what people do when they first meet: is they ask each other 100 questions. You know, tell me what you like. Tell me, you know, what your childhood was like. So people love question games, and people play question games deliberately, not just, you know, because they're forced by their creepy Orwellian boss. There's a third depiction of this in the video game version, which, and this is a, you know, an old classic adventure. And in this game, you go around interviewing various people and running the test on them. So it's already been done in like an interactive way in games. And what I wanted to see is if we could make a non-fake version of it. So in this version, you know, you see this set of data, and you're going to have to try to guess from looking at the data, you know, if that was an indicator of one thing or another about them. I don't want to spoil the movie, but basically you're trying to find out what kind of empathy the person shows in response to questions. Now, it has a long history. I don't know if the story was inspired by it, but this was the first empathy test program, if you will, was called Eliza. And what Eliza did is it got people to talk to it, and it just asked simple Rogerian psychotherapy type questions in response to whatever statements you said. So you'd say something, and it would say things back that seemed like they were relevant to what you were saying, and got you to sort of elicit a response that you took seriously. And if you didn't know better, especially back in those days, who could have guessed that this wasn't a real person, right? Like, this was genuinely convincing to people before this became the world's most famous AI program, basically. So people responded to it because the questions were open-ended, and I think maybe there's something we could do similarly in the modern day. to use sort of open-ended Rogerian kind of techniques to make something that might be helpful to people, whether it's just a fun game to play or a serious tool. So there are people that use this kinds of tools seriously. The military did one that was to help people convince them that they should go to a counselor. It was like a virtual first talk about going to counseling. And this is one to train the counselors that they would then go talk to. So they've used it both on the getting people to want to do it side and on the training people how to do it side. And if you've seen like what they did with America's Army, which I thought was also a brilliant recruiting tool, getting you to want to join the military, and a training tool, so that when you showed up for basic training, you already knew combat life-saving procedures. People were saved on the side of highways with emergency medical assistance provided by people that played America's Army. So I think this could have serious results. And you know, like, these movies are so cool, but the world, it's 2020, right? And Blade Runner happened in 2019. So where's our flying cars? And apparently those are being demoed in China. So we need an empathy test to go with it, right? Okay, so how could we start to do this? It's so full screen that I can't get it to go away. Okay.
You got it?
Did the presentation disappear entirely?
Yep.
Okay, because I had it
Yeah.
set to the slideshow, which only it's like a special thing that pops
You
up
have
when
to
you
re-screen
have to
share.
redo it. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So could we do better with modern technology? That was kind of the thought experiment. Okay. So the first iteration of this in the past, in 2019 or so, we said, could we use current biometric and neurotech sensor data to facilitate computer-aided psychotherapy with humans and chatbots? What sensor data do we have that almost every computer has built in? Well, we have webcams. And I really wanted like neuro stuff, but I didn't have any at the time. I had played with Emotive, but I had just been borrowing it from friends and stuff. So I just used webcam data. And I looked around and I found this really cool SDK, which is unfortunately MIA now. And it really was best of class, called Affectiva. And they had some real robust claims about their accuracy of their emotive classification being tracking closely with, they claimed, like brain tracking type techniques. So they were claiming that their analysis of the facial data over time in terms of how they analyze it temporally and in different ways was good enough to rival something like EEG. And I don't know if that's true, but I certainly found that it worked for my original demo. So my original tech demo, the premise was just a simple question: how are you feeling? Which they ask at the beginning of the empathy test as well. So I'm going to show you a super crude reenactment of that. It's not, the original was less than this, but the current version is a bit hobbled by not having the Affective SDK anymore, but I've tried to recreate the experience. So I'm going to share again to Unity. Okay, here's Unity. Okay, so it says, how are you? Does anybody want to try taking the test, by the way? Will someone volunteer?
Yep, I'll volunteer.
Okay.
You're all volunteer. Okay.
I think he was first. Who's the volunteer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna have to turn my camera so it's pointed at your face and full screen you. Where are you?
Oh, okay. I need to turn my camera on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a sec.
It's the magic part.
There you go. Can you see me, bro?
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna point my camera at you. And
let me know if you need me to like flip it around or anything.
Let me see.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to turn off my video feed. Okay, so my video feed is already stopped while I'm presenting. Okay.
You're still presenting.
But you can't see my face because my camera should be on him, right?
Correct.
Okay, so how are you?
I'm feeling good.
What are you excited about?
I'm excited about the assignment that is due in 2 hours.
Okay, so I don't have the ability to take arbitrary text, so we'll just say you're just feeling okay.
Yeah.
Now, you don't look very excited. Are you really good? Can you try answering honestly if we start over? Let's try that again. How are you? Let's just
I'm
say
feeling good.
for the sake of exploring the dialogue tree, we're going to try different responses. So
Okay,
so let's say you're feeling fine.
I'm feeling fine.
You don't look fine. Is something bothering you? It's okay to show how you really feel.
Oh my god, sorry, I might be a bad participant. I just froze. I don't know how to respond to that.
Just one of these two.
One of these two.
Can you see my screen?
Oh, right. Sorry, I'm supposed to be looking at your screen. My bad. Yeah, I can't actually see anything.
Oh, you can't? Is the screen sharing working for everybody else?
It's working.
See,
Yeah.
Sorry, you might have to choose someone else. My apologies. Yeah, I can't see anything.
Lisa, can you see?
No, I can't. I was just going to refresh the screen and log back in. That usually helps.
You have to make sure you aren't accidentally forcibly selecting one person's screen. Like Alex's screen is being shared, but you need to make sure you are selecting his screen to see it.
Yeah. Okay, I've got it pointed at your face now, Lisa.
I don't think I can do it, but I can't see your screen.
Lisa, what are you seeing, Lisa?
I see Alex's. Well, for a second, I saw Alex's computer. Hold on. If I pull back and I see everybody's small version of their screen, I could see his computer with like a, like in 2020 when you had the red dot looking at you. That's what I see from Alex's webcam.
Yeah, click on his screen, and then it'll go full screen for him.
Yeah.
Okay, I clicked on his screen, and now it's just gray.
It's only gray? Okay, that's weird.
Okay, I'm gonna restart the the share.
Usually it works if I oh, okay. I'll let you try that. It's been working if I just go out and come back in.
Okay, do you see Unity now?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm gonna do this one on myself.
Or I can see it.
Okay, Ryan, do you want to do it? I'll point to the
Yeah, I'll do it. I mean, I also remember I was one of the people who did it originally.
Okay.
Yeah, let me
now
get
I
a
can
bit.
see it.
Okay.
It says you're right. Something is bothering me. I'm actually fine.
Oh.
I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we doing this or?
Oh. Lisa, do you want to do it or should I?
Ryan needs to do it because there needs to be someone who can see.
Yeah. I can see it now. I went out and came back in.
Okay. Well, I have it pointed at Ryan's face, so let's stick with
Go
Ryan.
ahead. Have Ryan do it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm fine.
Oh, hold on. I have a bug. 1 second. I put in a thing that made the screen go black. Let me fix it. Sorry. Real-time debugging.
Still, it's cool to see the so you're using like a node editor for it. That's really cool. Yeah.
And the questions are adequately spooky.
Yeah. And also, considering you can actually see my webcam, you could theoretically use a virtual version of something like Affectiva, if there's something that's trained that like we could train on webcam data, that could be really cool. Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. While walking along in a desert sand, you suddenly look down and see a tortoise crawling towards you. You reach down and flip it over onto its back. The tortoise lies there, its belly baking in the hot sun. But you're not helping it. Why aren't you helping it?
It's already dead.
Okay. Someone gives you a calfskin wallet for your birthday. How do you react? Oops. You're watching television. Suddenly you spot a wasp crawling on your arm. How do you react?
Swat at it.
You're reading a magazine. You come across a full-page nude photo of a girl or guy. You show it to your husband, wife, who likes it so much, she hangs it on the bedroom wall. The girl guy is lying on a bearskin rug. What do you do?
I'm confused, but
Describe in single words only the good things that come to mind about your mother.
She loves me. Ooh.
React to this. You become pregnant by a man who runs off with your best friend. You decide to get an abortion.
I'm not a girl.
React to this. You're watching a stage play. A banquet's in progress. The guests are enjoying an appetizer of raw oysters. The entree consists of boiled dog stuffed with rice. The raw oysters are less disgusting to you than the boiled dog.
That is true.
The test is over. How many answers do you think were given by machines?
I am unsure.
Thank you for participating. How did you like the test? This question will not affect your result.
It was fun.
Congratulations, you're a human being.
Yay. I wasn't sure.
I'm not so sure either.
So, if anybody is wondering, this wasn't a real empathy test, obviously. In fact, I don't even have the Affectiva SDK anymore, so there wasn't actually any facial recognition anymore. That I haven't gotten to work yet. But I think the point, like Eliza, is that a lot of what the effectiveness of this is based on is the theatrical impression that you know things about the user that they're shocked by. And the way that Eliza worked was by making you think that its questions understood you. The questioner seemed to understand. And the original reason why I came up with the limited question that I did, which was just how are you, is it seemed to me like even if you just had like one or two calibrating moments where it seemed to know things about you, it could have quite a weird impact on how seriously you would take everything else. A good example of this is in Metal Gear Solid and in the Perfect Dark games. Nintendo had games that did things with your head, and PlayStation. So for example, the Perfect Dark game had a fly that would buzz around on the screen, and many people tried to swat that fly and thought it was real and never found out that there was no real fly. They were completely messed with it. The Metal Gear Solid games would tease you about your other favorite games by reading your save data cartridge. It knew what other games you liked to play. And the only way to beat that boss was to do something physically with your set, which I don't want to spoil. So anyway, I'm sorry I don't have a full running demo yet, but I'm trying to currently shop for a replacement for the SDK. So I'm going to just continue the slides now. And okay, so those original questions were based on the idea that for any given question, you could ask them different responses based on what their face seemed to indicate in contrast to what they were saying. That was the original premise. So these are original responses that I wrote for it. And just that one matrix was kind of like an eerie experience, but it wasn't much. So what are we trying to do in the present? Well, we have to rebuild this. We don't have the Affectiva SDK, and we're currently trying to get one of several candidates to work. So our research so far has led us to OpenFace, which is a package. There's a demo by Hosni Mansour, and his demo is kind of like a proof of concept. He's got some GitHub code. I have not been able to get it to work. A lot of these things have plugins that just don't seem to work when you try them, whether it's the Unity version mismatched or something. A more well-supported version based on OpenFace is Face's avatar. I'm trying to get data from this, and the key is like all these sliders, right? Like I need not just the points, which I can get from OpenCV and other things. I need all of these values for like wideness of eyes and surprise and that kind of a thing. So I'm hoping Face's avatar might be able to give it to us, but Face's avatar is designed to animate characters with it, and so I haven't been able to get it to just give me the data quite the way that I want. But it's at least promising, and they use it in applications that are kind of like what we're proposing. The one that I just found, which is a bit simpler than those, but much more like what Affectiva was doing as far as what I was doing with it, is this emotion detection asset. And I tried to get this working tonight. I couldn't get it to work. But basically, it's a plugin, and it does almost exactly like Affectiva did. It just gives you the live values for an arbitrary number of faces in terms of what emotion they seem to be showing. And this is almost identical to Affectiva's original SDK demo. Probably not as sophisticated, but all these emotion values, that's what I based the original off of. So as soon as I can get one of these to work, I can try to get it to work for real. Did I lose my slideshow again?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to show the app. Hopefully this works. Are you able to see this?
Yep.
Okay. So what am I trying to do next? Well, what I want to be able to do, besides just getting the face tracking working, is now I have an EEG headset, and I'm trying to get LSL Unity to work with it. I want to try other stuff like the skin response stuff from rings or the MMG stuff in the headbands. And I'd like to do actual eye tracking. That was one of the big things about the original empathy test was eye tracking. Now this might require something really atypical, like putting it right up against your face to get enough resolution on the eye for it to be useful. But I'm willing to try anything. How do I plan to integrate this? Oh, I'm using a dialogue tree like system right now. The dialogue tree system of choice that I like is something called Artistry Draft, which it's a very good tool because it directly imports to Unity. So whatever you build with it, you end up getting actual C# objects and classes, and you can extend it massively in both directions. So you can use it in Unity, and you can put plugins into it. So I'm hoping to make a plugin for this, which allows me to make the values for emotional influence just part of the dialogue tree, essentially. It has basic Lewis scripting, which is probably enough to handle a bit of the like variable tracking as far as state detection. But kind of like the SDK we saw earlier, I think it's important to be able to do some of the post-processing to just give useful values. It's not feasible to write a bunch of Lua code that's going to like understand raw data and turn that into like decisionable or actionable emotional reads. That I think needs to be kind of post-processed a bit, and that's what Affectiva is kind of good at. So I might have to roll that myself. And as far as making a better chatbot than Eliza, this is the best chatbot stuff we know about right now. It's called Spirit AI, and it's done by Emily Short and the people that did some of the best interactive fiction stuff. If you've used the Inform game engine, which is like a text-based game engine for making interactive fiction. Basically, this engine lets you create all these branches, but with really smart AI on the inside, not just reading emotions on the outside. I played their demo at WWDC, which is like a sort of a iRobot detective story, and it was very convincing. Finally, I'd like to try voice analysis. So there's a Unity plugin for this, which I'm going to try next. And this could analyze like how your voice sounds. So are you feeling kind of down? Are you talking kind of slow? Or are you feeling excited, So anyway, all of these are different approaches to getting data in. And microphone and camera are ideal for getting started because there's so many ways to do it. But it's all about trying to get as many of these as possible. And I'd like to make this open source and present it as a starting point for people to make interactive psychological experiences of this kind. So that's where it's at. And we have a ways to go. but that's why we joined this the group, was to get help. So
awesome.
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've mentioned this before when we've talked about this. You know, that Microsoft has you know, their cognitive SDK, and part of that is doing this kind of motion recognition from images.
Yeah,
like they've done that. They've got that training data included. It's a basic, I think it's like 7 emotions that they'll pull out, and you know, they'll basically give you a weighting across these 7. You know, so you could definitely send images out. You know, you could send images to Azure and get a reaction, and
as a web service, you mean?
As a web service.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at web services, and they can work fast enough for what you're just trying to classify, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, so just a thought. Like I still, you know, believe that there is definitely more that can be done than what Microsoft's been doing. And then of course, you know, yeah, I mean the things you had about Eliza, you know, plays right into certainly my own interest, which is that we wanted to replace a psychiatrist with a Raspberry Pi, and well, in the sense that like a typical psychiatric, you know, appointment would essentially be the doctor asking a bunch of questions, right?
Yeah.
Like this could be scripted without it really demanding a whole bunch of GPUs, and what is actually like
and
totally,
MDs.
Right, and you know, quite easily, and that was certainly the main point, was that this could scale. Like everybody could get time that they'd get that kind of interaction. And the really important thing, and this is part of the Child Mind Institute focus, the really important thing is to get a person to generate a whole bunch of text, a whole bunch of sentences, and then that we can actually learn a lot. Like what is really well developed is NLP, right? And you know, to some degree NLU, like a kind of cognitive
analysis stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and so Satra Ghosh has a review paper that covers, you know, multiple NLP techniques as applied to psychiatric text data. And it you know, it's a really well developed area that actually, you know, part of what Eliza is coming from was like, this was an idea back again in the 40s, you know, definitely before they had the ability to pull this off. But they were, you know, that psychiatrists at the time were just like, you know, if we could analyze text, we could really do this kind of quote patient diagnosis from this. What you're really, or you know, what the empathy test in Blade Runner is getting at is definitely, you know, is not so much psychiatric or, you know, in the real clinical application that I'm thinking, but is perhaps a bit more like what is passed off today as a real science, which is lie detection, right? And you're not actually getting a whole lot from the eyes. You know, like obviously none of the Blade Runner stuff was real, and they don't really try to explain it. But I did catch a wonderful interview with Ridley Scott talking about this what's the new the TV show he's got, Raised with Wolves, or anyway. He's talking about sci-fi. He's like it's not that it you know, it needs to be real. it just needs to feel real. But what you can get, and certainly Alex has talked about this in terms of his work with the eye tracker, you can get, I mean, pupil dilation does tell you a lot about like internal cognitive process. And that's something, you know, I think what you could get if they were using it is that basically the way in which, and this is something that does get used psychiatrically, the way in which you kind of saccade around an image. So if I'm showing you pictures, like your eye is moving around that image unconsciously, and the pattern in which, the complexity of which is rather revealing. So there is something to that you could potentially use. And so like if you were looking for replicants, like they would not necessarily scan the image space in the same way as a human, for instance.
So we could show prompts, because the idea is that these questions, we could just call them prompts in general. As a prompt, they're designed to kind of like trigger an emotional response in somebody that's somehow revealing. If we had visual prompts, then eye tracking could come into it. And my take on the whole thing is it's okay. Yeah, the original is sort of like a lie detector test to find out if you're a replicant, right? But if you read the original story, it's a much more dark twist about how the human beings are less human than the replicants, right? Because at the very beginning of the story, Deckard and his wife have a machine with numbers like 1 through 200 or something, and they push a button to feel an emotion. And it just like sends chemicals to their brain that make them feel whatever button they push. And it has like a timer, like a microwave. So they basically be like, I want to feel like this for this many minutes, and then like this for this many minutes. And they're basically prescribing themselves psychiatric drugs, right? But like really targeted ones. And so it's kind of like, I take the story and its themes, to me, to be at least touching on the idea that we're not very human most of the time. Right. And that's why I like Blade Runner, is that the question is like, how human are you right now? Is like, some people would say like, how present do you feel? Or how alive do you feel? All these different ways of asking questions like that are getting at something which I think the movie just sort of metaphorically deals with, which is that we're all of us not well a lot of the time, and COVID extra so, right? So the more opportunities to do this, like you said, without necessarily a full psychotherapist being present at all times, the better.
Well, so you know, I mean, like honestly, certainly what we've proposed in grants is that we can do better than the psychotherapist. You know, because our NLP. I mean, what we need to do is actually just get the person to generate a lot of in a sense, I don't want to say unprompted sentences, but like what the Child Mind Institute does, which is they have you watch a movie and then they ask you to retell the movie. So that's like you come out of the room and it's like, oh, tell me the story that you just saw, right? And now Child Mind Institute is doing all this, you know, serious, you know, neuropsych evaluations and IQ tests and all very deep reading evaluations and language assessments. But there's you know, this gold mine of data that you can relate to just how they retell this story, right? Yeah. And again, like I'll find the Satragosh paper or review article, which, you know, this happens. I mean, this just shows you his kind of breadth. But this is also, if you caught the discussion of invasive electrophys, he's also the Dandy Archive developer. So this is the Brain Initiative management of invasive cellular electrophys.
Wow.
And yeah, there's a lot of like the tools Alex showed. I also use Artisy Draft and Spirit AI, and the Spirit AI team has been doing a lot of work to integrate with things like IBM Watson and other really large natural language processing tools, so that if you don't think your computer can process what a person is saying, it could actually be partially processed in the cloud and sent back in real time. Which, like, the thing you're talking about, Morgan, with like retelling a story, like, you could, if that could be done with like a webcam looking at someone as they watch a movie, like with both eye tracking, a webcam for emotional analysis, and then after the movie, they say how they feel, and that information gets sent out in real time to process exactly how did they say that response. Could they have used different synonyms? Because, like, I know there's been certain research into how you say certain responses can be partially how a person is feeling. Like, do they use a certain word that is more complex than it needs to be? Or are they having a difficult time explaining something really simple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early days, right? But you know, I mean, we've talked about these ideas too, in terms of, you know, having the person watch a movie can the movie can have a whole bunch of different scenes that are the kinds that Alex kind of described, or, you know, are the kind of descriptions that come from the Blade Runner thing. And you can ask them about, you know, situations that happened, or, you know, the movie can take strange turns that you know, kind of defy what your expectations and things like that. And you can, you know, wait for changes in heart rate and galvanic skin response and things like that, or not. Super interesting stuff. You know, I'd love us to talk more about the lie detection literature, mainly, you know, to talk about what it can't do, but you know, but at the same time, like, so many of these measures, like, you get more from combining these measures for sure.
So to touch on that idea as well, what I demoed so far is an interaction style where basically you're talking to a chatbot, because that's what I could make first, right? But what I thought would be more interesting use of this is like the original Blade Runner scene, the mediated experience where a human being is talking to another human being. And there are games like You Don't Know Jack and party games, Cards Against Humanity. These are very popular games.
Yeah.
And they get one person to say something and other people to give responses to it. And people engage in that for fun. So it seems to me like the most interesting is to have two people who are talking, because they're going to be more able to respond dynamically than Eliza or Spirit AI or anything like that. But to give two things that are beneficial. One is interesting prompts. So the prompts can help the conversation happen. So it's like, you know, if you believe in tarot cards or something, you might think that they're supernatural, but even if you don't believe in them, you might just think that they're useful prompts, right? Like, oh, it's a good way to start a conversation about whatever, is to pretend like they're real, so to speak, just as a psychotherapeutic prompt. And if we view them in that regard, like the answer, like the sort of scenarios that You Don't Know Jack or Cards Against Humanity, that could be useful. And the second is the biometric stuff. So if we can give the person asking the questions these tools, so that we can suggest follow-up questions. For instance, because that's the beauty of it, is it's sort of open-ended, right? So in the same way that the Rogerian stuff didn't really need to know what you were actually saying, it just had to like pick up on certain phrasing. If the tool's only job is to know that you are asking a question of a certain category, and then to look at certain kinds of responses that may or may not be relevant to that category. So for example, if it's an embarrassing question, right? So like how much you blush or something like that might suggest a different follow-up for the person to ask. So in that sense, you could kind of hybridize the two. So you have a live person who is fully capable of improvising and delivering a better experience than a full chatbot would. But the tool gives you enough of a prompt that the questions go in a certain direction, and then enough of a insight into how the person is responding potentially to suggest different follow-up questions. So that's what I'd like to develop more fully. And as soon as I can get the SDKs to work, or if anyone has an old copy of Affectiva, I would actually love to just get a copy of it again.
Well,
but yeah, that's what I've got so far.
So, somebody dropped a link in. Let's see what that is. Oh, okay. Josh, can you say more about that?
Yeah, it was actually a meetup out here in DC. It was around the guy built a tools kit that allowed for automatic extraction of personal events, which I think is kind of what you're getting at to some degree. So you can tokenize it, and there's all kinds of methodologies and all the stuff's out there if you want to look through some of that. I thought as soon as you started talking, I was like, ooh, that might be helpful.
Yeah, so tokenization is big.
Yeah,
there's a game that uses tokenization. I want to show you guys this really quick, just to show like what's the current state of the art in like interactive, open-ended Eliza-like experiences. What happened to my tab? Okay, so along the lines of that paper, there's a game called Event Zero. How many people here have seen it?
A little bit.
Okay, so this is Event Zero, and these developers very cleverly tokenized everything you say to get some utterly astonishingly convincing results. Can you still see?
Yep.
Okay, so basically you're on a space station, and you get to the space station, you're stranded there. Skip to this intro stuff. And the only thing that's there when you arrive is a computer. Everyone else is missing. And so when you walk up to that computer from the very beginning of the game to the very end of it, this is your only companion, much like HAL. And it's a very isolated and slowly decaying space station where you're in danger. And your only partner to help you solve these problems is this computer. And so they did a delightful job of like recreating a nice old amber screened retro. They kind of create the fiction that it's an operating system and everything to set the tone. Just like Rogerian psychotherapy is the tone for Eliza, the tone for this is it's an operating system. And this has no choose your own adventure pre-written dialogue. Everything you write is you. And this actually works. They actually did a good enough job. What they tokenized was for every set of rooms that you could be in, they tokenized all of the things that were relevant to those rooms that you might be trying to solve problems about, or in the storyline that you may have discovered. And so they managed to just extract from whatever you say, oh, they want to know about this token, basically. And the other matrix that they use besides token extraction is an emotional matrix of how well you've been cooperating with the AI and how much you trust each other. So like the more times you don't do what it says, or you like ask it things that make it uncomfortable, the less helpful it is and the more like potentially threatening it is to you and so on. So that way you feel like the experience is real because you feel like it emotionally responds to the notes of how you've been treating it, but it also is helpful and essential to doing everything in the game. So those two things make it pretty much sell to the player. Even though it has bugs and stuff, it just says, oh, I'm a buggy AI, you know, I'm partially damaged by the crash, whatever, you know, and the player will just excuse those things. And, you know, much later in the game, you're doing much more complicated puzzles with its help. And it really is convincing. If you haven't had a chance to play it, I recommend it.
Cool.
Yeah.
What was it called again? Event Zero?
Event bracket 0, close bracket.
Is it just using like a support vector machine? Is that, I guess, probably the method?
It's not even that.
It's not, it's not even that.
Like I said, it basically extracts tokens and then compares them to an emotion matrix.
Oh,
Right?
okay. Oh, yeah.
So it's very, very well, cleverly written, huge numbers of pre-written responses. And because everything that you're likely to talk to it about is one of those tokens, it just seems to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, if you look at some of the demos Spirit AI has done, they've taken some similar aspects for some of their stuff. Like, no, at GDC, both me and Alex played a game where you had to interview a robot that's been thought to have committed a murder, even though it has the 3 laws programmed into it. And you have a limited number of questions you can ask it to find out what actually happened. And during that whole like 4-day event and like 10,000 people tried it, Alex was one of the only people who actually was able to finish it the whole weekend. And like it was really difficult because at first, like, I and a lot of people tried asking very, very specific questions that felt like you were asking them to robot, but really the best answers you got were when you were writing questions as if you were talking to another person. And it's like the difference in how you write when you think someone is another person who responds in a naturalistic fashion is actually quite dramatic.
So
Murali had a good point in the text, by the way. Murali said that humans have evolved recently to do things other than just seeking energy to survive, and so it's not so much that we're not human as we're abnormal in the sense that we're out of our element. We are doing things that are kind of like uncomfortable for a species which is good at eating bananas. And
well, yeah.
So like
sorry.
We're out of our element constantly, and that's tough. I think that's how I take Morelli's comment. Maybe I misunderstood it. But the second thing Morelli said is the challenge for psychiatrists is not so much to get the diagnosis right in the ballpark, for example, in chronic depression, but to find treatment and find a way to get the patient out of that depressed state. And I wanted to say that's an interesting challenge. If we were to limit ourselves to like one kind of impact, like the game Depression Quest, which tried to deal with depression, the game introduced a variety of tools that you had to use to raise your like mood level very gradually and very painfully. And one of the things that they introduced in the game, for example, was like having pets can help improve your mood and emotional state. Tons of people who played that game got a cat or a dog after they played it and said that it saved them from chronic depression, and thanked the developer for introducing them to the concept of pet ownership. So it was a very simple intervention, but it was just in the game. And if we did try to do this, we could try to set about some area where there's a narrow range of possible treatments. And if there's any way that the clues we can extract from our interview process can help us figure out which of those might, for example, you show them a picture of a cat and you show them a picture of the dog. Which one do they get more excited about, right? Like, yeah. It could be subtle, like it could just be thrown in there in a picture that you don't mention anything about the pet thing, and then later, when you try to sell them on owning a pet, you already know whether to suggest a cat or a dog because of like which one they responded to or something. So I don't know, maybe there's a way to use that approach to try to narrow the field of treatments down.
Yeah, you can also, one thing that like I don't think's been used for psychotherapy, but virtual pets, because there have been enough studies at this point that like virtual like animals and stuff that you take care of actually can elicit some of the same exact responses as owning a real physical animal. Like I think in the 90s or something, they did a study on Tamagotchi pets and like the emotional trauma when those died, if it's been around long time, it actually affected people in a way they had never seen from a video game before. And same with, like, I know for a while Nintendo was actually doing studies on their game Nintendogs to see what raising a virtual pet did to the player, and like how often did they come back to it. And
So,
it's been weaponized a lot these days, like making video games addictive through making you have a emotional attachment to something in the game, which Facebook is like, this is what happened with Farmville. You got addicted and you wanted to get stuff from your friends so that it would benefit you. And
I think it's important though. I mean, we're using terms that are used clinically to describe things that are not what I would call clinical problems, you know, and like that's so I mean, I think it'd be great to talk about internet gaming addiction and where that line comes, sort of as we started today talking about people, you know, using this idea that the big tech companies have somehow weaponized dopamine hits, and the way in which people talk about that as if it relieves people of their, you know, willpower. but we, you know, I'd just like us to use those, you know, more clearly, use those terms more clearly. And yeah, I mean, certainly the recent, I believe it was WHO decision to make internet gaming a true addiction, or, you know, a category, was met with still some controversy, but it does really relate to this. Well, like get to your point about the virtual pets, you know, at this point, as far as I know, a real pet is still by far a bigger change in a person's and the how their outcome will
but
be determined.
to use it during the testing phase, like when they're starting the treatment and stuff, see how they respond having a virtual pet. And then if it helps a bit, have them get a real pet. Like pretty much use it to analyze and, like Alex said, suggest actual treatments, like, because
what I wanted to get at was like, in terms of us trying to make Raspberry Pi into a psychiatrist, that one of the problems that we actually have is it doesn't create the human connection, and that you know, so this is getting into a little bit about like, why does talk therapy work and create, you know, a lasting change. It's important to say that, like, we can't really recreate in a proper virtual way the interaction that you have with a human when you and so it's getting close to 9.
It looks like Lisa has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one statement that I think people forget a lot about AI and this prospect of replacing the doctor or replacing the therapist. And there's this whole in-between step where they are going to assist, clearly they are going to assist the human doctor or the human therapist. And I think that it's actually so damn exciting how much they will be able to assist the people we have. We're way beyond the replacement thing. I mean, we're way premature for the replacement thing, but that doesn't make the having them assist this thing any less exciting, you know, to me. And so as far as having a Raspberry Pi isn't going to replace the therapist, but if every therapist had a Raspberry Pi capable of collecting things to have this additional data stream coming in when they're analyzing their patients and the reasons why their patients feel one way or don't feel another way or have some problems or whatever, I think that's actually what we're going to be going into in the next 10 or 20 years of this golden age of having AIs assist us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting the example that you gave, Alex, or the military example you had, you know, is actually one of the biggest problems, right? Like, we know that the military has an incredibly high suicide rate relative to the general population, but getting people to ask for help is the real problem, right?
That was their first use. It was just an app that made you talk about talking to someone.
And it's like this weird, it's overcoming this weird, like, you have to talk to a human, but it's actually the fear of talking to a human.
Right. So its best aspect is that it's not a human, and so you're less scared of it. And that's actually its most salient feature. That's key. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's super interesting, you know, and that's what I just wanted to say. Like, it's really complex when, you know, I certainly, I hope nobody misunderstands and makes it seem like I'm thinking that there's a real easy solution to replacing a psychiatrist with a Raspberry Pi. But yeah, I like what you're saying, Lisa. Like as an adjunct, and, you know, certainly we need to do a lot more. I just wanted to mention a few things before 9. So, there's been a lot going on this week. Brainbox Initiative, which is a really awesome conference, and I think it just keeps getting better every year. Is covered, you know, all the top neuromodulation techniques of TDCS, TMS, and of course now TFUS, or, you know, transcranial focused ultrasound. And so Charlie Stagg, Jacinta O'Shea, and I'm blanking on the Dutch. He's the Donders guy, led the TFUS. Anyway, those webinars are certainly I want to say his first name's Leonard. He's done webinars that they make available from their website. Really recommend them. Speaking of TFUS, we have a new ultrasound channel. Oh yeah, so I don't know if anybody saw it in introductions on Slack, but Marcus Kaiser introduced himself and his new book, Changing Connectomes, and it's really cool. Especially if you're into graph theory, applied graph theory, and lots of examples. Great book. He's also the one who started the ultrasound channel, and as well as I think he's some principal in Neuroinformatics UK. Lots of really great resources in that book, by the way. And please check out the ultrasound channel. We've threatened to have one for a while, and, you know,
threatened.
yeah. Well, I said, like, we should have an ultrasound channel, but
Marcus Kaiser started the Neurotech Slack ultrasound channel.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know, he's involved with BrainGrade, which is one of the Berlin groups that present, you know, the new NeurotechX Berlin. You know, like, he's doing a lot of stuff. And
yeah, he always has been doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, hang about. No, this is a different Marcus Kaiser. What? Okay. There's more than one Marcus Kaiser.
Or is there more than one Marcus Kaiser?
Well, hang about. This guy's at Siemens. What? You're talking about the guy in Newcastle, right?
I'm talking about the guy in Newcastle.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I know him from, I think we do like bipolar MRI structural analysis. But yeah. Anyway, I wanted to mention that.
I just googled that another guy came up, but yeah, I mean, I know who you're talking about.
It's a cool book. I got it. Also, Neurodata Without Borders with the user training, which was all also on European time. But check out their Slack. We are getting. We will be coming out with some sort of invasive NeurotechX SIG, and yeah, helping people. I mean, maybe putting together some beginning tutorials for dealing with some of that data. I'd and as John mentioned last time, yeah, definitely love to. A great place to start would be, of course, ECOG, and finding more publicly available ECOG data sets. Or I don't know if Open Neuro is going to be the place to find those, but love to talk more about that. And there's
I invite to the Unity channel on Discord. So if people aren't on the Discord already, the Discord has some advantages over Slack, and this link will take you straight to the channel for Unity, where if anyone else is trying to get LSL or already doing LSL with Unity, or wants to also look at face tracking and other stuff, I'm very excited to try the SDK that was shown earlier, because I want to integrate this with EEG as well.
Yeah, come join the Neurotech Slack. I mean Discord. It's a bit different than Slack, but has a lot of the same features. Also, one of my psychologists just showed up.
That's awesome. So I've also started with some students at McMaster. I started a neurorobotics channel, and where we'll be just talking about the neurorobotics platform, Human Brain Project platform, as well as Neuro Ross or Ross Neuro. I forget which ways they talk about it, and OpenAI Ross that relates to it. I mean, OpenAI Ross is actually a bit more closer to neurorobotics.net. But Ross Neuro is definitely more like having BMI data feeding into a Ross system. So anyway, have a look there. Those students were interested. We already had, this is what we were already covering at the Noisebridge Robotics group. And anyway, the cool thing being that you can do everything in simulation until we reach a post-COVID time.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other things that coming up next week. The Oxford Autumn Neuroscience School. I don't know if anybody was signed up for that. They've got massive interest. I think it's going to even, they've got like 7,500 people signed up. It's going to be pretty big. Of course, I think everybody saw that Neuromatch 3.0 is coming, or well, will be end of October. And let's see what else next week. Anybody else want to give a shout out to anything next week coming up that people should be? I know there was Allen Institute has a brain health thing that's coming up October 7th. I think I posted that in the well, check the workshops channel on Slack. Oh yeah, there's an online workshop of EEG fMRI acquisition and analysis. And Stanford is doing a triangulating intelligence melding neuroscience, psychology, and AI. That's the October 7th thing. Anyway, lots more. Continue the discussion on Slack. And as always, I want to thank our videographers, Ryan and Alex, and of course, X, and our future NoiseBridge streaming. So yeah, thanks for everybody who presented and everybody who spent up till midnight with us.
Yep, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.
For those that can stay on, may I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of doing honors next year, and I've been told to obviously look into some research that has been done. I am specifically very interested in rehabilitation, and I